This is Susanna Magenheimer, Random Artist 222. Today I'm doing a project for the Shawn Petite creative design team that I call Mixed Media Aged Vintage Peeled Wallpaper. So let's get started. What I'm going to do is show you some of the products that I pulled together. It's kind of my thought process as I do things. She just released a whole line of new wallpaper paper collage packs. So that inspired me for this project. I saw peeling wallpaper, and while Shawn also did a video of her effect of peeling wallpaper, mine's completely different, though the inspiration is these wallpapers. And here's some of them so you can see. This is one of them that I'm using. I'm also using from one of our other collage packs these moths and these butterflies. And I printed these out actually in black and white because I wanted to put them into the background. So I'll show you that when I get into it. But it's just a way that you can work with these collage packs. You don't have to work with the color that it prints out at. You can change it to black and white. You can change it, you can change the size. Like I picked up one of her see here, her collage pack windows, and I shrunk it down to what I need for this project and then cut it out. So it doesn't mean that I'm using everything that you see today. It's just stuff that I pulled together to help inspire me to what I want to do. So I also pulled out Shawn Petite's pattern hearts. This one's relatively new. I thought about using this one. I also pulled out her gears, though I'm not using it in this video. You might find an inspiration in this to use for your own take on a wallpaper type project. I'm using her Whimsical font 1. I'm using Clock Scroll, and I'm using this one down here and these little numbers. Shawn Petite's Mediterranean Duo, which to me is a staple. You have to have this stencil. It's absolutely wonderful. And then, so those were the stencils. And let me put those aside. So then I went ahead and took just a piece of 9x12. Actually, this one's 9x12 piece of wood panel so that I could make the way I visualize this work. I also am using these paints. I'm using from Lukas the Naples Yellow. I'm using Mint. From Amsterdam, I'm using their neutral gray. Lukas Krill, I'm using the Turquoise. And from Lukas as well, I'm using the Terracotta. And I'm also using some gesso. And I like this brush, and I just brought it out so you could see it. It's a 2-inch brush. It's just a Langer nickel brush, and I use it for the gel medium to put this wallpaper onto my board. And it comes out nice and smooth when you can do a big swath of gel medium. So I went ahead and did that so I could proceed with the project quicker. This wallpaper to me is the undercoating of when you peel back, I shouldn't undercoating, but an underlayer of wallpaper that maybe you peel back as you are putting wallpaper on or pulling wallpaper off your walls. I took £120 paper, and I put a nice thick coat of Liquitex Matte Medium. So it would create a way for me to create a wash on this without, pilling the paper or destroying the paper in the process. So this is, like I said, one of the watercolor packs, the new ones that came out. I had it printed up in black and white because I want to be able to colorize it the way I want to and have the pattern still show up. So let me put this aside so I don't wreck this. Okay, so in order to get this effect, you have to be cognizant of how you want your lights and your darks. Because when I put my base layer on, right, that's what's going to show through. And I'll put this here. that's what's going to show through these parts of the stencil, are these lighter areas. So I decided I wanted to go with the yellow and the mint mix, and darken it a little bit with gray and create a wash and then let that dry. And once that dried, then I would come back with the terracotta, let the terracotta dry, put this back on, but without letting it take too long to dry, because if I let it dry to the complete finish of drying, completely cured, I won't be able to pull color back. So I'll let it dry for like a minute or two, then come in with a baby wipe and pull the color back. And what you want to make sure, obviously, is that when you pull this back, your dark color, right, is going to show, and your light color is going to come through, unless you want it the other way around. But to me, it worked better having light coming through dark, but that's a personal choice as well. Okay, so I'm going to dip my water in here, my brush in the water, hello, and I'm going to bring in some of this first. And I want to use painterly strokes, so I'm just doing this. And as you can see, it starts to let me do the wash nicely without saturating my paper right away, because the Liquitex is acting as a protective coating. Okay, and I'm going to bring in some of this. And I want to make sure as I'm doing this that I don't completely obliterate what's underneath that. And if I need to add more water to this, I will. I added a little bit more water because that was getting too dark over there. But I'm still retaining the magic of how that green and yellow play together so well. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to let that dry. I'm not wasting this. I'm going to run that through an index card or something to create some what I call craft overs, so that I can use it later on in another project. So as I told you, I had that leftover paint, and what I did was take some index cards and just gather it up. There's another one. So that I have things to start off with, or die cut, or whatever I want to do with them. And I just keep them in a stack on the side and pull them out as I need them. All right, so here's the mint and the Naples Yellow mix that has now dried. And it's you can tell that the paper is even stronger because of that matte medium we put on there. And I prepared the terracotta from Lukas, the turquoise, and the neutral gray. So I'm going to get my wash again because it's going to be a wash. And this time I'm going to have a baby wipe prepared inside a paper towel, because I don't want the baby wipe's pretty juicy, and I just want it to be damp. So that's a way I can do that and control the water. Have some paper towels ready. I have my stencil ready that I'm going to be using. I have a little bit of white gesso to lighten things up if it needs it. And I'm just lining things up in my head. Remember, on stencils, if someone like Shawn has the name of the stencil on there, that's the front of the stencil. If you do it opposite that, you're going to end up with these lips underneath and it'll seep. Okay, so there's going to be a little bit of seepage only because this is going to be a wash as well. There are different ways that you can do wash. You could put the water in the paint. You could have the out on the side here. I usually like to just play with it on the side, and then I'm trying to see with my original 2 how dark I want to bring this. Okay, and you want to make sure that this bottom layer is absolutely dry, because when you're pulling the color back through the stencil, you don't want to pull the color back, all of it. Okay, so I'm just using a painterly stroke again. A little bit more water. I'm going to bring in some turquoise. And I'm going to lighten this up a little bit with some gesso. Not a lot, but I don't want that terracotta so dark. And so you see I'm losing my stuff in the background, so I'm watering this down some more. And I'm pulling some back. Okay, so as you can see here, you can still see the pattern underneath. I didn't obliterate it too much. And when we start pulling the color back, you're going to see, hopefully, the magic. So I'm going to let this dry for a second. And then come back to it. Okay, so now I have my paper towel around my baby wipe so that it's damp and not mushy. And I'm going to start pulling back the color on this. So do you see that? So that's pulling that color back. How much of it you want pulled back is a personal choice. But you can see that the pattern's showing up really nice, which is exactly what I wanted. And try to match it up as you bring it over. Okay, so that's all pulled back. And what I'm going to do, like on this one, is now create the gold. You know, like some wallpaper has that really funky gold stuff on it. So I'm just going to take a Posca pen, and once this dries, I'm going to go through and just randomly, I'm not going to do it right now because it's wet. I'm just going to put in those gold marks. So you don't want to watch me do that because that's utterly boring. But again, it's a personal choice. I just did it sporadically throughout the piece. So then when we're done, we can start pulling this whole thing together. So this is ready to use now. And it might not look like much right now, but watch this. Oh, so this is that wallpaper as you're tearing off wallpaper that's underneath, that's gorgeous. And you're like, oh, you know, this is the one I wanted to, where was this all my life? So in order to do this, what I do is, and I'll do it on the edge right here, is I want, when I tear my paper, I want it to have feathering. So what I mean by that is if I tear paper like this, right? There's no feathering, that's a straight cut. But if I do it this way and bring it this way, then I've just created a technique here, and I created this feathering effect that you can see here, okay? And that's the effect I want, because as you're ripping wallpaper back, you want to have that effect of the separation between the actual material and the paper backing. So I went ahead last night and did just that. So I wanted to keep things, again, in odds. I didn't want... It works the same way here. When you draw flowers, obviously have 3 flowers. When you're working with even these kind of pieces of paper, try to keep them in odds. It's just more, the eye tends to like that more. So you notice here that I've used a distress spray stain, or you might not know that this product exists, but you can see the difference, right? This is bare paper the way it was. And then I gave it an antique feel, like it's been on this wall for a long time, by using distress spray stain, say that fast 3 times, antique linen. So I'm going to do that for you here right now really quick. Normally I would have a box, a splatter box, because I don't want this going everywhere. But I'm just going to use my little trusty paper towel. Lift it up like that. And you can see that dark color in the antique linen. That's what gives it this kind of yummy vintage flavor. Okay, so and it's not going to pool up on this paint because the paint resists it. Okay, so it's not going to settle in, and even if it does settle in, if you put any medium on top of that, it's going to just it's just going to come off. But because I'm doing it on raw paper, let me just get some of this brown stuff off before I. Because I did it on the white paper, like I showed you here, this raw paper, it'll absorb into that, and like this color will stay when I use the medium on it. So now it's just a matter of gluing down these pieces. So with paper, when I'm gluing down paper, I like to do two things. I like to put the glue on the substrate that I'm working on. Like so. And I like to put it on the back. It gives it a section effect, and it gives it a stronger bond, at least in my opinion. So now I'm going to put it on here, line it up as best I can. If you overshoot the edge, you can always use some sandpaper and sand it back. And if you notice little places lifting up, you can just add some more. See how cool that looks? That torn edge looks like it's been there for years. Love that. Okay, so that's the peeled wallpaper portion, and now comes more art. So I'm going to let this dry. I want this really set up before I go playing anymore. That's it, and then we'll come back to it. Okay, so now this matte medium has dried, and I can go and proceed. The way you can tell too is it doesn't feel cold to the touch. It's nice and on the warm side, so you know that everything's sealed up. And because this is a mixed media piece, I'm gonna treat it as such. I could leave it like this, and it looks really good to me. Kind of like a peeled paint effect that I wanted, or peeled wallpaper effect. But it's also a mixed media piece to me. So I'm going to stand up so I can see this. And what I'm going to do is just knock back some color. It's really gentle. Just so that none of it's all in your face constantly. If I feel like I've gone too far on one thing, I can just knock it back a little bit like that. And I kind of like these little veiny effects. That's just happening as a matter of luck. Because I am going to antique this further, so all that will get knocked back even further. Okay, so that's good enough for me. Again, it's a matter of taste of how far you want to go. Now, one thing I want to do is close my paint so it doesn't dry, because that's the worst you can do. Okay, I love working with this Prima Memory Hardware Vintage Ivory. They come in several colors, as you see here. And it's a little bit blonder than that yellow there. It actually looks like ivory in real life. And since I know I'm going to, excuse me, since I know I'm going to be antiquing this, I'm going to add some, I forgot I have wet paint on here, some texture to this. And this will dry quick enough so that I can do this at the same time. So what I do is, get that out of the way. This is a very fine powder. It can go everywhere, so please be cautious when you use it. Never want to really inhale the powders. And I'm going to use this to pick it up with. I'm going to use some Liquitex light modeling paste. I'm going to bring some down to my palette, like so. Always keep this seal thing because it keeps your product lasting longer. I'm going to be using Shawn's Tiles, stencil. So let me put this down here. I'm going to grab the ivory powder. And this is how I like to color my modeling paste. I do not like using liquid to color modeling paste because it tends to affect the stability of the modeling paste itself. So just very carefully start mixing it in. And I really do adore this ivory color because it looks like ivory when it's thoroughly mixed and incorporated. And I like this modeling paste because it'll pick up when I go back to do my final antiquing effect on this page or this panel. It'll give me, it'll pick up some of the color in it as well, or absorb some of the color in it, I should say. Okay, so I'm really happy with that. That's where I was. So I'm going to grab my stencil. And because I kind of know what I want to do here, I want to have a window in this area up here, and I want to have a clock down here. So I want to have, the tiles come in several sizes, so it's a matter of choice, but I'm going to go with the smaller ones, and I'm going to start it off the page a little bit, pull these back because I don't want to get them messed up. Okay, and then always start off, I like to start off the stencil so it doesn't goop. And I do not want perfect impressions. I just want the illusion of, the illusion of those tiles. So I'm gonna Okay, so I think that's as far as I'm going to take it. I don't want to waste this paste that's on here. So one thing I like to do, and in this case I'm going to take some tissue paper. I'm going to build off any of that modeling paste on the top. It's going right now onto my tissue paper. And if you can see that, look how cool that looks. So I don't want to waste that. Okay, so now I have something really cool and ready to use when I want to do some other project. Okay, so where I left off with this is I had knocked back the color a little bit, and I added, as you can see here, that tile stenciling just enough to add some texture. It kind of lends to the whole theme of the wallpaper. I didn't film this, but I went ahead and painted this little section with blue acrylic paint. Any sky blue paint will work, so that when this goes on top of it, I decided after I finished this portion of it, it finally came to me, and I decided I wanted to do more of a pop-surrealism kind of effect. I'm at a point where my art today represented frustration. So this obviously was in my head from the beginning that I wanted a window in my piece. But then I thought about time flying out the window, so that brought me to the clock. And I wanted something going around the clock. So to me, what represented that the best were the moths and the butterflies I showed earlier that I fussy cut out. And numbers flying out the window, so to speak, time flying out the window. And the reason I didn't put any tile effect down here is that's where I want my words to go. So I'm going to start with the next part, which I was going to do the aging, but I'm going to start with the tissue because that needs to dry out. And well, I guess so does the aging, but let's do that first. So when you're working with tissue paper, all of them are different. Some are more transparent when you put gel medium on them, some aren't. Some have a coating in the back to, I think, protect from grease going through. But you can definitely feel it. Like on this little piece that I'm working with here, this is very not coated on the top, and I can feel a slick back on the back. So I want to make sure if I stamp or stencil or do anything, it's on the portion that is the non-greased portion. There are other tissue papers out there. You have to test drive them, see what you like, because everything's different. Some glue down better, some don't. Some transparent, some don't. Some tear easy, some don't. Unfortunately, one of the ones that's really good is the Tim Holtz Ideology one, the blank collage paper, but he's just informed in one of his Insta stories that they are discontinuing this one, and that was a really good tissue paper. But just order some tissue, they're not that expensive, see which one you like. So I have the part that's non-grease laying down here, and basically what you do is I like using archival ink because that is permanent, pretty much permanent once it's dry. And I like these lifestyle brushes. You can find them on Amazon. I think Tailored Expression sells one size of them that's really big. But I like the lifestyle ones that are on Amazon because they come in lots of sizes, really teeny ones and big ones, so to fit your need. So, and you don't have to take a lot of ink to do this. And once it's dried off of there, it's pretty much off the brush, which is what I like. But what I like about this especially is that you don't have to put a lot of pressure, and it goes into every nook and cranny of the stencil. So no more, like with the pouncer trying to get in there and, that little point right down there. Oh my gosh, how hard was that to get with even a dauber? So you just do that and boom, you have it. Now, if you want to make a word, what I do is do a faint pencil line and I just run it across that. So that's what I do with the tissue paper and how I make them, how I work with them. This one here, excuse me, my allergies are kicking up. Watch Time Go Right Out the Window is from my favorite Linkin Park song. I love the lyric. I mean, it's a common quote, time going out the window, but that song really speaks to me right now. And I put it here so it would fit in that empty space. And then I went ahead, and I'll show you in a minute, I went ahead and I did the same stenciling to the clock, but then I painted it on the back. And that's going to go right, and I'm going to make sure that my clock's correct because I always put it upside down. So the clock will go about there. And then I wanted the sense of numbers, numbers flying out the window. So this will be connected and it'll go this way. So you kind of get the idea of what my theme is and how I'm going to work that. Now, when you're painting on tissue paper, it is an exercise in patience. Tissue paper is tissue paper, so it's very, very delicate. So when you paint with it, which is what I'm going to show you right now. Whoops. Let me get this aside so I don't mess that up. when you paint with it, I don't like to use a water glaze on it because the water will tend to start to affect the tissue paper. So in this case, I'm using Paper Artsy's Fresco Finish Butter. It's an opaque paint, and you don't need a lot. And what I'm going to do to let this dry while working, and I can show you right here too. This is one of the butterflies from Shawn's collage packs that I went ahead and fussy cut. And then in this case, I used the Naples Yellow because I wanted to pick it up from the paint that I used in the original piece. So this is the wings that are going to surround the clock. Okay, so when you apply paint on tissue paper, you know, I just go really light-handed on the brush. You don't want to have a glop of it because then it'll pucker the paper up and, you know, make it hard. And the reason that I'm putting paint behind my tissue in this case is if I put this down like this and I glue it on, this will pretty much all disappear. This watch time go, the lettering, even though that's a really strong black, that's going to be hard to see. So I'm putting yellow behind it not only to make it a cohesive connection to all the yellows and the lighter colors I have in the piece that coordinate with it, but also to make this pop more. So I want to make it really breathy and sketchy kind of painting. So obviously I'm not painting on the top. Whoops, I'm not painting on the top of the words. I'm painting behind it. So I'm just going to, see that? That's all you need. Just enough to get a breathy effect. So when you flip it, that's going to pop now when I put it down. And it'll be kind of like a brushed feel to it. Of course. Let me do this before I get that on everything. So I want it breathy. I want it like really light brush strokes. And I'm just going to take it across like that. If I put any more than that, it's going to start to affect the tissue paper and it's going to be really hard to work with when I do the gluing. So I'm going to do this. And also there are several ways you could go about tearing out your words when you're done. I am not one for scissors and sharp edges because they will show no matter how much matte medium you put down on it. That edge will show. It will not blend out. So I like to do what's called the pinch. I call it the pinch and pull. So just very carefully. Pinch and pull. Other people have found, and again, depending on the tissue paper you use, that you can take a brush, a water brush, or even a brush, a little brush, and put water on it. Surround what you're going to tear and just pull. The water will act as scissors, but that's hit and miss for me, and I'm not a fan of that one technique because once it goes into the once it gets too watery or whatever, it can sometimes pull too far. I'm just not a fan. It's not my thing. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to let this dry. And you can see how that already is popping, right? Let me get this. You can kind of see. See how that goes? So I'm going to let that dry. And when I come back, I'm going to put it all together. Okay, so now we're going to age the piece. And if you watched any of my other videos, you've seen me do this numerous times where I take paint, like a fluid acrylic or even just a soft-bodied paint, usually raw umber, a dark brown, apply it, and then pull it back with a baby wipe. That's what I normally do. But today I'm going to try something different to age my piece. In all cases, before you age something, you make sure that you've applied enough matte medium so that you have a surface that's not going to pill or absorb the color. Otherwise, the technique's really hard because you're pulling back paint. And if it's already going into the paper, that's rough. So have a baby wipe handy, have a squirt bottle handy, because as long as the matte medium is still fresh, and fresh, but I mean dried completely, but you know, it's still within a few days of when you applied it, you're going to be able to take most of that off if you make a mistake. So I know I have a clock here, right? And I know I'm going to have words here, and I'm having a window here. So I'm probably not going to do much antiquing in this area. As a matter of fact, I love the piece as is, but I'm going to stand up for a minute. I want these to show a little bit more. So I'm going to try using Daler-Rowney's sepia ink. So you want to make sure you shake it up. And have a brush handy. I'm putting a little water here. So I'm ready. And then I'm going to take this and put it right on there. Soaking my brush in this. And see, now I'm antiquing it. Don't want to have like painterly strokes because you'll see that. So push back a little bit with a baby wipe until you're happy with what you've got. Just trying to connect for cohesion. Okay, so now I'm going to let that dry and come back. Okay, so now the antiquing has, or aged effect has dried up, and I love how it's looking. And I like the contrasts between how the older wallpaper to the one that's being ripped off to even this. Although this might be too bright, and so I pulled out this artisan powder from Prima that's called taupe. That kind of matches this color to maybe knock this back, but I won't do that till the end as a final touch. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, show you that we had left off with these words and they dried. So that would look like something like that. Watch time go right out. And so I was going to show you how I do this. So now it's all dry and everything. So this is my pinch and pull technique, which isn't something I developed per se, but it's how I like to work with it because I can see exactly what I'm tearing. I'm trying to get as close to the yellow. The less amount of tissue paper you have showing, the easier it'll look or blend into whatever background you're putting it into. So see how easy that was? And that'll go like that. So now I'm going to kind of put everything together to see how I want it to look. So that's the window, which I want like that. And I'm using this to kind of have a foundation for that so it's not quite floating in the air. And this is going to come like that. So I want my circle right about here, making sure that the 12 o'clock points up. And I haven't decided if I'm going to put hands in it yet. Okay, so that's like that. Then I'll put the words in. So let me start with this. I'm going to start with this piece. So I'm going to just pull it out like that, so I know where these pieces are. Now I'm just using a Tombow runner. It's a permanent runner. It's a glue. If you've never seen it, it's glue in a roll form. And it's a very strong glue. So I have always used it in my mixed media pieces and never had any issues with it buckling or doing anything weird. So I'm just using the light again to kind of see where it's going. You can hear that, it's sticky. So you don't always have to matte medium everything in your life. Okay. So, but once you stick this down, it is down for the count. So I'm gonna, oops, sorry, my table moved. I'm gonna bring this under. And as best I can, eyeballing it. Looks pretty straight. So I'm just gonna tack it down. Okay. Now, in some cases you can even glue the back of deli paper with the glue runner, but this I can't. So I'm going to grab my matte medium and okay, so I know my 2 is going to be on the kitty corner on this, so it's basically trying to figure out, I'm going to write about here. And because I've had matte medium all on this board, it's not going to do anything to hurt the color or anything. And normally I would also put like a streak of it behind. That helps to increase the transparency. This is one way I found that's kind of easy too, is applying the matte medium as you go along to the back of the deli paper. So I have what's on the bottom of the board, and I can lift and push down any bubbles I see as I go along. So again, another roll of it. Bring it down. And you can see it's disappearing as we speak into the background. And as it dries, even more so. And I really try to burnish some of that matte medium into it. Because the more that deli paper sucks up the glue, the better you have for it to go into the background and disappear. And that's it. Now what I'm going to do off camera is put in my butterflies. So they're going to go in circles around the whole piece. So as you can see, I finished the project. I glued down the words, and as you can see close up, all that deli paper disappeared behind into the background. I went ahead and glued everything, including the butterflies, and then outlined them in soft charcoal pencil. And as you can see where I stained the background to have more of a lived-in look, that balanced out completely, as it didn't look like it would originally, but it ended up doing just what I wanted it to do. So if this inspired you, please remember to subscribe and like. Thanks so much. It really makes a difference. And have a great day.